And we're here. We are live. Friday night. I'm here. Can you see me? Hey there, wooden doors. That's an ominous name there. How you guys doing? How's it going? Good evening, good evening. Good evening, sir. Nuke's good. So I put out a call to action, and we got 700 replies divided by 100. But that's good. Hey, welcome guys. Welcome. How many of them are feds? All seven. All seven. It's nothing. So the good thing is we got responses. The great thing is they're all feds. Every single one of them is a fed. Fantastic. It's actually a good thing, because why is it a good thing? It's good because we're really, like, I keep saying I'm distancing myself, like, pretty much so people are watching videos from normal universe, and they're because they're basically like hashing their bets, right? And like hashing, like, right now everyone is my nose is always so dry when I get in here. I don't know what is going on. I'm dehydrated or something every night. When normal people are watching these videos, they're like taking what they heard in the video. It's sticking. Like, I know that it's sticking. So they're taking what they heard in the video, they're throwing it against their normalcy bias, and then like letting it tear through it like a Wolverine knife hand through a sheet of paper. Like, it's like shh, and it's like tearing through, and they're not ready to like jump over. You know what I mean? They're kind of like, is this real? Is this, what's real? If this other shit that I thought always isn't real, then maybe this isn't real either, right? And it's good. It's a good thing, because it creates plenty of space, right? Like, plenty of division between, there is no, it's not like a gradient. It's like a divide. And that's good, because it's hard to forget then, right? Like when they come over, which I don't know, they may not even come over to me. They may make their own bridge in their own direction, or not to me, but to the realization of reality. And when they do it, they'll have to remember how much they resisted. You know what I mean? And that's good. That's like a positive thing, because it's like forging. You know what I mean? It's like forging something good out of something that isn't as good, right? Good evening. Good evening. We got an MD in the house, doctor. We got a doctor up in here. We've all been lied to. But it's good. It's a proper way to go into this era, to have a division, and to have to have to wade through resistance in order to, find who you are. And that's the exact way that you want to do it, right? Like, if you just blend it in, it's like there's two things that I see. Is like one is that just about people in general, including myself. I don't exclude myself in this, but people in general have a great weakness. Humanity in general has a great weakness for, peer reinforcement, like not being comfortable to be a man alone, like be out there on your own, do something on your own, right? But that's really what it's all about, right? Like that's like the uh it's like the apex of existence, right? It really is. And regardless of the domain, whether we're talking like somebody who climbs a mountain by themselves, or if we're talking about somebody who spends time in their own access to their mental world thinking, like anybody that's ever written a great work or blazed some kind of path for other people to follow and to give it to them like a gift. It's something they do, you know I mean, I'm not gonna say they do it by themselves, but there's no other people there, right? um and it's really intimidating when you first get into that kind of realization of world, I think, for most people. um the other thing I see, of myself, you know especially when I was younger, is the whole like holding everything like it's a blanket, where you you ever, I'm sure that you see it, like you see it all the time in work, in like work ethic and stuff, and it would be like you usually see it in like poor leadership, you know in terms of the different schizotypes in people. There's for lack of a better word, there's like a real tendency for, you see it in bosses. So like when a boss, if you have a boss, and people will know what I'm talking about, when a boss won't accept an idea that's not their own. So if you're like on a tight crew somewhere, and you see this in the military, you see this in like with like high-ranking NCOs in the military, or officers, where it was like you had to do the actual, like the actual people that held together the unit would have to basically create situations where the person who would cause an actual effect would believe erroneously that they like came up with an idea just to accept that it was good. You know what I mean? Like, see, you couldn't just come up with the solution, which is the way that a team works, like a proper team. They come up with a solution, and they're entirely selfless, and they're all face towards the problem, like it's in the center, and they all face toward it, and then they just pour their mind and soul into it and solve the problem, right? Or come up with a solution, and then if it doesn't work, then they try a different solution until they solve the problem. But in this case, what I'm talking about is you not only have to do that, but you have to anticipate the resistance through your own team, and then you have to study it and learn it over time. Because when you first get to like, I use the example of like a unit. Well, if you're new to the unit, it takes time to like learn everybody's idiosyncrasies. So you watch this leader that you realize is like it's like a gatekeeper for execution of something, right? Like shit that you're gonna have to do no matter what in your daily biz, and then you have to learn their psychology to understand that they have like some kind of something holding them back. They have something holding them back from being able to face reality directly, and it's like a I don't know what you would call it. It's almost like a pathology, but yeah, you have to trick them into believing that an idea is theirs to get them to accept it. And society's kind of like that, in that society, with the way that people are, like they almost need like the MSM to tell them, like what's what, right? Like nothing's appropriate unless the consensus is there, the societal consensus, and it doesn't really matter what else there is. Explain, with the status quo narrative. it won't be good enough, right? Like it has to be like the keys of power have to jingle over you and say like this is the way, this is the case, this is true. Then you say, oh, okay, because like you're gonna get fed by that hand, right? And it makes all the difference, right? For now, for now. Um, and this is, you know, it's great, it's perfect. There's not a, it really couldn't be any other way, you know. Like this is why the you know, this is why this whole thing is going to be so fantastic. Like this entire process is going to be incredible. Um, how it unfolds for all people in the world, and it's the more um, inexplicable and unlikely it is as it unfolds, the more power it will reflect on the people and their consciousness and their realization of reality. And this is what is known. You know, this is the reference to bringing the high low and bringing the low high. This is what we're talking about, right? Bringing the high low. The high will be brought low, and the low will be brought high. And that's not me. I'm not talking about me. I'm saying for existence, for humanity, for consciousness, right? For self. So somebody here. This is a. We've had lots of questions about homesteading or just, and I mean, it's fine to use the term homesteading. I don't usually use the term homesteading because I feel like homesteading makes it sound like it's a like a package, like a separate package away from life. The reality is it's just life, right? It's just the way that everybody lives. You know, like what makes sense and what you don't have to depend on others for is the way that you would live, right? If you didn't have societal control and intervention in your life, like regulatory intervention, what you would have to do to not rely on someone else is the proper way to live, right? In pretty much any aspect, right? Any aspect that you could think of that you would need. And if you think about it and you're like, well, that would be hard to do without somebody else, then maybe it's like you don't need it, you know? Maybe that's the case, right? Maybe you're on something that is taking more from you than it's giving, right? Which is always the case, often. For the amount of land, I mean, you can really get away with. I mean, it all depends on how far you want to go. If you want to do trees, it would be good to have like, I don't know, 5 acres maybe would be like a good minimum for like an orchard if you want to like a large garden and orchard, and then it just expands from there. Like however big you want to grow shit. I mean, most of your tree intervals are like 15 to 20 feet for like large size trees. You know, for like close. That's like a close interval planting. If you're just doing gardening and shit, you can get really creative with it, and you can get really compact. Rainwater is huge. That's like collecting rainwater is the way to do it. It's the way to do it for sure. It's so simple and so foolproof that it's. I mean, you can as long as your container. So like if you didn't know this, the way that you would set up, like if you wanted to stop paying a water bill, the way that you would do it is to get your like your cistern vessels, whatever those are, and you can use your, like I buy the IBC totes off of Craigslist for, you know, I bought like as many IBC three. I could fit three IBC totes. They're like the large ones, the whatever they are, 500 liter or whatever. I don't know, 1,000 liter on top in my truck bed, and drive on the highway with them. And most so you would match up your water bill, like how many gallons you would consume. You probably, when you do that, you realize you consume too much water first thing. So you'll think about like ways that you can cut back on water. But even if you didn't want to do that, if you want to have like everything the same, all that you do is take your total water consumption like in a month period. Like you would basically take like your high bill, like your highest bill of the year of how much, when you use the most water, and then you would that would be like you'd put it into gallons, and then you'd take like your roof area, and then it's essentially like an inch of rain is 1 gallon per square foot. And so you calculate your roof area, and then it doesn't matter like however big your roof. I mean, unless you have a teeny little roof, most houses are like, I don't know, like 1,000 square feet, like a normal size house, up to 2,500 square feet is somewhere in that range. So your roof area is going to be that, but then you always have slants, so you actually have greater surface area on your roof than your square footage of your house, right? Because it's at an angle, right? So you take like how much water you consume into gallons, and then you figure out your roof surface area, and then you take the longest dry spell. So you go to like a weather historical chart, and you take like the historical, like you can find it by year, where it's not like average, but just like you look like the past 50 years, let's say, or 100 years, however far you want to go back to the record, and you say what's the longest dry spell where rain didn't fall, and then you need to cover that amount of time. So like if you're using X number of gallons in a month, but then your longest dry spell is 1 month, then it's like you're good to go. You're gonna be at zero if you match those two, right? If it's like 2 months, if you have a dry spell of 2 months, then you would have to double your capacity, right? Most of the time, like a month with no rain is pretty rare for most of the United States, unless you're in the high desert or something like that. But that would be how you do water. And water's a game changer. You gotta think of it like this. It's like this. Your basics are your water, your heat, and your shelter and food. That's like your basic, right? Like internet, all that shit. That's like that's like a side concern, really. I mean, you'll need it while you get set up. Because you'll be ordering shit on the internet like a madman, but it's not necessary. And you shouldn't be afraid to experiment either. You shouldn't be afraid to like the IBC totes I got cost me like $30. Get them, and then you get some like bulkhead fittings to like punch through there and run water in there, and then what is going on in here? Yeah, I get 1,000 liter IBC totes for like $30 here in Missouri. Acid rain. Abdullah wants me to talk about acid rain. Yeah. So you can, depending on, so like around here, because this is Missouri, so you get like, if you didn't know this, like at least for Missouri, it's Monsanto is like the major ag company, and they've, if you didn't know this, in the United States used to be extremely well versed and knowledge on agriculture, like almost like more than anywhere else, because it was we had like the German immigrants, and we had the British, and then we had like a little bit of everybody else, and so you just had like, that's like a huge like ancient not only like seed saving for growing plants and shit, but for like heirloom seeds, but for just like general knowledge of how to do things, and how to process your food. Like after you make your food, how to make it last through winter. You know, where it's not a pain in the ass, where it's not like where you're actually able to succeed, because it's really hard if you don't know. Like there's lots of ways to do it. It's not like one way. There's lots of ways to do it, but you have to know what they are, because if you don't know what they are, then it's like you're trying to rediscover the fucking wheel, and that's gonna be really inefficient. Um, I definitely recommend like fermentation. If you don't like, there's a fermentation book by there's a book called The Art of Fermentation by a guy named Katz, um, Katz, and it's like a modern book, and it's pretty good because it's consolidated history of fermentations, and you get a really wide spectrum of information of like pretty old fermentation techniques, right? And fermentation's huge, smoking's really huge too, and like solar. Now, when I say solar, I'm not talking about photovoltaic, like solar panels for electricity. I'm talking about like using the heat from the sun. So like if you make a box and then you put like a piece of corrugated metal, like like a corrugated roof, like just simple metal roof, like you can find them fucking rusted all over the place. If you make like a wooden frame, with no bottom, and then put a piece of corrugated steel on the bottom, and then put like a wire mesh in there, and then put a window with hinges on it, and then paint the metal underneath painted black, like with just like a high temp black paint, then that's like a dehydrator, like a solar dehydrator. And you have to play with your spacing a little bit, but it's not super sensitive. You have like inches of headspace, like maneuverability, and you can put food in there and dehydrate it, and it will preserve your food for like a long time. And you do get some. So with dehydration, you lose some nutrients out of the food, but it doesn't require any input. It's just the sun. Like you just have to have the sun come out to do it, and that's it. So it's like you set this bitch up in your backyard, throw some 2x4s on it for a frame, and then you just like whatever you want to keep, you just fucking lay it on the rack, and then if you're smart, you put a frame on your rack, like your mesh rack, like a piece of mesh, turn it into a rack with a frame, and then some like little wood studs that you just nail in there. I mean, this isn't anything complicated. It can look like, fucking like a trailer park or something. It doesn't matter. And then you can lift your screen out and then just put your food on there, drop it in there, and then you just dehydrate it, and then it'll preserve it for a long time. It's like making trail mix basically out of like anything that you put in there. The other one's smoking. If you do like for meat preservation, smoking is huge. And for smoking, you typically use like you want to use like fruit trees or nut trees, typically the wood from them. And you can also use, like if you're using like let's say that you're in an area that you don't have any nut trees, like let's say you want to do pecan, right? Or let's say you want to do almond. Like some people really like to smoke with almond, but almond, there's really only, like I'm in zone 6A on my like on my latitude, and so most of the almond trees, I can get some Iranian almond trees that are suitable for 6A, but they're really rare. There's like only like 2 phenotypes that grow in 6A. All normal almond trees are like way south, but you can take almond shells and you can burn almond shells, and it's the same as the wood, right? Which a lot of people don't realize. So you can buy like a pack of almonds with the like unshelled almonds, eat them, and then save all your shells, and then you can just use that for smoking. Now you got almond wood for smoking, right? Things like that. What is going on in these comments here? Yeah, smoke and smoke meat, like even like we don't do it much, but like Norway and Sweden and shit like that, and Finland, they do a lot of smoked fish. Once you go really north, then they don't even use smoke. It's just because everything's ice, so they don't even have to do that. But around here, you can do smoked fish, even like smoked cat. And you got two different approximate smoking methods. One of them is cold smoke, and one of them's like regular smoke. The cold smoke would be if you reduce the temperature to where the meat's not cooking by thermal energy. Like your heat is removed enough to where, you're probably warming up the meat, a bit, like past 100 degrees, but it's not much past that. And like a hot smoke would be like if you're using, obviously using flames and smoke to cure, right? And then that'll significantly increase the keeping time of your meat and shit. The other thing that you can do is salting. And salting is kind of hardcore. Like it works really good, and it works really well for, like, if you're doing like what do they call it, cartoucherie, like we're taking meats and like making sausages and shit. Like if you're doing like French or German meat preservation, that's like that kind of technique. And then there's like the down and dirty one, which is just putting everything in salt, like doing like a salt brine and then like putting salt on it, and then you remove it when you eat it, right? And that's pretty hard. That'll change your flavor of your meat. It's more of like a, we're just trying to survive here. You know what I mean? It's not like ooh, delicious. Although some people do like it. The fermentation is really cool because in fermentation you don't lose any nutrients. And that's the reason that you have like sauerkraut and pickles and shit like that isn't because of the flavor. Like like how we get them now in the grocery store in a jar. That's just how it ended up, you know what I mean? Because it like tasted good, and so people liked the flavor, and it stayed around. It's all preservation technique, It's not like a sales point for a commodity. It's just a carryover from the preservation techniques, So like, if you ferment something, like you typically use like a crock pot where it has a liquid seal on it so that air can't pass into it, and that would be like on the lid. And fermented dip. So if you ferment your food, then it not only does it retain all of its nutrients, but depending on what you're fermenting, it actually adds nutrients like beyond what was there, because you're basically like changing the composition of your food, And so this is like I do this with my chicken feed, or more accurately, like my wife does it. She does most of the tending because I'm like gone, bringing home the bacon. But for fermented food for animals, if you get a pack of grain, like a grain feed, a grain and protein feed for like chickens, for example, right? If you just feed them that dry, you feed it to them dry. I mean, that's how most people do it, and it works. But if you ferment it, you will increase the nutrient intake that they're receiving from the food, and it increases you decrease your food consumption for your animals, right? So like fermenting is huge, and most animals you can do that with. Like it's rare that you'd run into livestock that you couldn't do that with. And it's free. Like I say, like if you're doing wild yeast, where it's like you just adding water to it and then letting it catch a yeast out of the air, like there's literally nothing. Like you put the chicken food in the bucket, you put water in there until it's moist, and then you just wait, and then you go and check it, and if it starts to smell like putrid, then it's like you got a bad yeast. That usually doesn't happen. Like you're typically going to get like a good yeast, and then it's going to start to smell like a mash, like it's you get that kind of like sharp, stinky vinegar kind of smell. That's good. That's like you got a good yeast there. And then you just when you're dumping it out, you save some of the liquid in there at the bottom, and then you just add more grain and more water, and then it'll automatically repopulate the yeast, and you'll continue to ferment it. Yeah, and you can save your fluid, obviously, right? Yeah. So fermenting is huge, and it's not. What's crazy about fermenting too is that it's not like a finished science. Like most of it, there's like a huge people ferment shit now, and like you have like with the health food craze, you have like kombucha and shit coming around, like in the United States, and they're trying new recipes and shit, but like the range of fermentation is unknown. So it's a it's an entire field that's unexplored, basically. And it's actually kind of hard to find information on it. Like, I mean, you can find information on like a specific thing that somebody's doing, and they write a blog or a book or whatever. It's hard to find something where it talks about like a science, like where they just say like here's what we know, like here's like the history of like what we know about it and what people have done, and all that shit. Right? I don't have any cows. I'm still on. Right now. I buy my milk from a dairy farm down the road, and it costs a little bit more. So like I pay for like a gallon. Like you have to bring your own jug, and then they'll like they have like a giant vessel that they'll pour it out of, and it's more expensive. Like you're at like $7 a gallon, but it's not pasteurized or anything. So you have like all the fat is in there. It's just like straight out of the milk, the cow's tit. Like nothing else happened. They just milk the cow and they give you the milk, and it's amazing. It's incredible. Uh, yeah. I mean, that's like you can't get in a grocery store. Obviously, you can't get in a store. But most of these people that are doing this are just that's just the way it is. You just give them some bucks, and then you get the. No, I don't separate. I don't even separate. I don't separate anything. I just drink it. But I would like to get, I would like to get off of like we buy cheese at the store. I'd like to get off that and make my own cheese. Which we're experimenting with. Soap you can make easily, like whether you're using a liquid soap or hard bar soap, you can make that, and it's super. Not only is it super fucking simple, but the soap that you can make is so much higher quality than any fucking like boutique soap bullshit that you can buy in a store. It's so much better, and you're basically using like potash for using sodium hydroxide or potassium hydroxide, depending on which one you want to make. The like the potash itself is like that would be like you can make potash out of ash. So like if you take ash, like wood ash from a hardwood tree, like if you have a wood burning stove, you take hardwood ash, and you can literally use like rainwater and just run drip, like do like a coffee drip where it's like you have a constant drip into a bucket, and then you will render which one is it? You're getting, what do you get off of is that potassium hydroxide from fire ash? Okay, yeah, potassium, yeah. So you get potassium hydroxide from ash and water, and then that will give you potassium hydroxide will give you liquid soap, and then sodium hydroxide will give you bar soap. Yeah, and yeah. Sodium hydroxide is lye, and you can also make that, but it involves electrolysis, which isn't as scary as it sounds. It's just not a beginner, or I mean, if you do any electrolysis, then maybe you'd be comfortable with it. But it's like you're basically like doing a chemical reaction that's assisted by introducing voltage into it, like in a bath, and then you can get you can make lye. Well, it just depends on the soap. So like the sodium isn't suitable for, or it's not. You could do it, but it's a lot more. Like if you go, like let's say you're using the squirt bottle soap, like the foaming soap or whatever. Like if you go buy like I don't like using regular soap because it's so fucking. I mean they just fucking load that shit up with all kind. Like they're just like dumping out the fucking MSDS from some factory into that batch, and it's like hardcore shit. Like it's not soap, right? It's got like more shit in it that's not soap than soap. So to make liquid soap, if you're making liquid soap, then that's where you want to use the potassium. Yeah. Yeah. So Yeah, this guy said, "How do you say your name?" Anyway, the XAUEPOV. Can you write that phonetically so I know what your name is because you're always in here? No, well, I'm not gonna remember that because your screen name doesn't say it. How do you say your screen name? How do you pronounce it? Yeah, and if you're fucking with lie, don't fucking get it on your skin. Like wear goggles and shit. Any of them, either one. If you get that in your eyes, you'll go blind. So, Zalpov? Okay. So Zalpov said, hey, guy, you said something about, some kind of demonstration to stop the vaccine. Yeah, I did, except for that nobody wants to fucking do it. We got 7 people that responded. There's nothing, that's it. I can't do anything. I already said this in the beginning of the stream. Yeah, we got 7 volunteers out of like people that YouTube's getting stunted a lot. So well, don't count it out yet. Like we're not even into the rodeo yet. Like yeah. It's not a disappointment. It's just we just can't do it right now, right? Like it's not happening right away. And there's a lot of shit that is like dependent on people's finances and time. You know what I mean? Like right now we're still in it's a weird situation because you have you've got people need to make a living because they're gonna have bill collectors, right? So it's like until the bill collectors get disrupted, you can't have a period where somebody can just say like, fuck it, I'll just go do whatever. You know what I mean? It's like they're locked into the system. Yeah, this is exactly. Scott Span says this is still getting started. This is so preliminary right now that people don't even know what's going on. Like if you guys are here, then you're like a light year ahead of the curve. You know what I mean? But it's gonna fucking catch up to people. The downside is that typically in like the synthesized revolutions and shit, it totally, like the internal conflict in the United States is totally dependent on how compliant people are. You know what I mean? So if like shit gets crazy in the United States in the interior, which is very likely, then you're gonna start seeing shit like controlled revolutionary movements and shit where it's like somebody LARPing as an American and they have priorities elsewhere, and then they're just gonna be there to draw in people. You know what I mean? And so when people start to become displaced or uncomfortable enough, or like just feeling like shit's not right enough, then you'll start to get the motivation for putting energy into trying to come up with something to do. And then with that, you automatically get the the control funnels for like sucking those people in and then sending them in a guided direction. That's not effective, right? Or that's lethal, right? It's very common. That's that's what happened in Iraq. Like all the fucking Al Qaeda and shit. That's all like AQIZ. Well, that's Iraqis. You know what I mean? They didn't know that they were joining AQIZ, but they did. The people who owned AQIZ knew. So I guess let's bridge that into current events. The vaccine, it's going to be forced, but they've got to tiptoe it because they can't just come out and just boom, you're going to jail if you don't fucking shove this in your pee hole, they can't do that. It's not going to work. It's automatic rifle to the face if that happens, right? So they have to do it slowly, right? Yeah, Abdullah wants to talk vaccines too. What do you want to talk about on vaccines, Abdullah? Abdullah was talking earlier. You did you know? Do you know which one they're going with? Like who the manufacturer is, who the company is that they have selected, or are they still doing down selection? Yeah, Fauci, you fucking clown, fucking asshat, that fucking Fauci guy. This guy, well, Christopher Russ says, Gilead Sciences or Inovio. Is that correct, Christopher? Or are you talking out of your ass? Is that legit? I mean, I have no idea. I don't mean that like a challenge. I'm like asking if, like, you're just making up words or if that's actually what it is. Okay. And do you mind if I ask you, where you came to that conclusion? Or, like, what informed you on that? Or is that just like a hunch or what? Okay. Oh, it's Bill Gates? Okay. So Novio is Bill Gates, which would fucking make sense, right? Like, Bill Gates has been, like, fucking wetting his pants for fucking decades to do this shit. By the way, if you didn't know, Bill Gates' mom was at IBM during like World War II. If you didn't know that, and IBM did a lot of shit with Germany, with like Nazi Germany. No, I don't do. I don't even. My kids have never even been to a doctor. I'm sure they'll go at some point. I'm gonna get a local doctor and like trade or pay cash. Yeah, Bill Gates is into eugenics, all right? That's correct. Johnson and Johnson. Johnson and Johnson's like the fucking Afghanistan heroin importer. Yeah, I did get full anthrax through the army. Yeah, I mean everybody did that deployed back then. No, I don't think vaccines are a good idea at all. I think it's a um, there's like philosophical issues with it that we should probably not talk about. But the who's Padre? His Padre? Wait. Somebody said his Padre founded Planned Parenthood or something like that. Which Padre? Who's Padre? Bill Gates Padre? Is his name Gates? Yeah. Johnson owns about 80% of the poppy fields in Afghanistan, if you didn't know that. And Afghanistan is basically like the FDA approved successor to like Chinese opium from the prior century. Have we talked about Planned Parenthood at all? We've got a lot of conversation here about Planned Parenthood. Have we talked about that in the past? Okay. So Planned Parenthood, if you don't, we'll talk about Planned Parenthood a little bit. Planned Parenthood is, like most people know Ethel Byrne, right? Like Byrne, right? And Ethel Byrne, and then they'll know Margaret Sanger. Like Sanger's probably like the most, front runner for like the poster child for Planned Parenthood. But yeah, it's Ethel Byrne, and then her sister, which is, or I'm sorry, Margaret Sanger, and her sister, which is Ethel Byrne, and then her friend, which is Fania Mendel, like Mendell, and so Fania's husband is Roeder, this guy named Roeder, who assisted with like the Mexican Revolution and like Pancho Villa and shit like that, like he was like a communist agitator internationally, and so he went like he got fucking picked up in the McCarthyite era, like getting accused of shit, and then he fled to Mexico. Yeah. So I am gonna start. I'm gonna start using like everything, but gradually because I don't know what I'm doing. So, like, I'm gonna set up. I've got a BitChute that I have that's totally unused. The BitChute, it doesn't have any material on it right now. But if you want to know, it's Doug1337 on BitChute is my account. I've got a DLive. I don't remember even what the fuck the account is called, and I haven't put anything on anywhere else except YouTube at this point. But I'm gonna start horizontally expanding to do like everything, you know. So we're gonna do Discord, we're gonna do DLive, and we're gonna do BitChute, and then we're just gonna let the cream rise to the top, like whatever works the most. What do you think of Bitcoin? Well, I've talked about this, you know, quite a bit on Bitcoin, but I've never talked to Ian McCollum, and I talked to Carl Casarda last in like 2017. Yeah, Doug 13 probably on Instagram. I don't have I don't have any plans on doing anything on Instagram. Yeah, so if you're not aware of this, I have no idea if Carl. I I have no idea. So here's the interesting thing about Carl, right? Carl, like when I talked to Carl in 2017, we were working on a video project, which is like, it was really fun. It was just, but it's very like, you know, like we just, you know, it was, you know, the business of the art, right? So we were like meeting up as PNS, Carl, and me, and you know, and PNS crew, which are all, you know, great guys. Like especially PNS, those are like real principled guys. The when we were when we so like in 20 like in 20 either 20 late 2016 or early 2017, I started to make like little videos on Instagram about international banking, you know, and like about like war profiteering and shit like that. And then I heard through like when I talked to Carl while we were filming, he was like, you know, when we met, he was like, "Hey, how you doing?" I was good. Nice to meet you, you know. And he was like, somehow we got into a conversation. He was like, "Yeah, I heard you were a Nazi," and I was like, "What?" And he was like, "I heard that you're a Nazi," and I was like, "No, I mean, I'm not a Nazi. I don't know what you mean." And then it took me a little bit. It took me like a month or two where like I went back and thought about it, and then I put two and two. Discord is a fed up. Yeah, I mean, I so I understand what you're saying about Discord, right? Like I understand that it's probably a honey trap. That's also what all social media is. You know, like there is no like you don't have a free platform at all. Discord's Mossad. Well, who is it? Is Discord Mossad or is Discord fed up? Which one is it? You guys are gonna have to come to some kind of agreement here about who is. What about Telegram? Telegram is definitely monitored, 100%. Yeah, we're all fucking feds. I mean, what, you know, like what are we gonna fucking? I guess we could send each other letters, except for that the postal service takes pictures of all the mail, so we're not safe there either. All right. Hang on. Can you guys stop for a second? Can you guys fucking stop? One second. Okay. I am fucking tired of talking about Carl. I do not know Carl, and I've made a video with him. Whatever Carl has going on has nothing to do with me. So, like, you know, Aaron's in here talking about Carl associating with the Tifa members and fucking something about the TSA. Like, I don't care. I'm not talking. I haven't talked to Carl for 3 years. You know, like what? And we made a video for his in-range channel. You know, like that's it. I haven't sent him a message. I don't care what Carl does. He's fine. Just fucking chill out. Okay. So let's establish something right now. You don't have any. There's no like. It doesn't matter what you're talking about unless you're like writing the fucking software yourself and know it. And even then, probably not. Like there is no secure. And why would you even need it to be secure? Like what needs to be secure? There's nothing even nefarious going on here. Yeah, there's no secure comms. There's nothing, the only matter of like the only thing that's different is between platforms and shit is if like, one's got less people like reviewing material. That's it. It's all recorded. Like you can't, there is no secure comms. So, okay, so where were we going on this? What are we talking about here? We were talking about we talked about Planned Parenthood, right? Um, Planned Parenthood, it's kind of a big deal, in my opinion. Just on the dystopian aspect of it, like especially once they got government funding, like, I mean, I don't even know how. I don't even know how they, it's a testament to how malleable the human mind is that could even be pulled off where they could take tax dollars and do it. Yeah, 50 million babies killed a year. Yeah, yeah. You guys are fucking Carl. That's ridiculous. This guy says pretend it didn't happen and just keep going on. No one cares about Carl. Carl. Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. So, you know, I'm not gonna fucking do. I don't need. Why do we need secure comms whatsoever? There's nothing. I'm putting out fucking videos for mass. I'm trying to reach as many people as possible. It's kind of counterintuitive if I'm using like fucking secure communications. Don't you think, you retards? We're wanting like regular ass fucking people to stumble on this shit and get woke the fuck up. On Contra, let's not do Contra, because if we do Contra, then we have to talk about all the other South American wars, and that's like a whole fucking thing. We don't want to do Contra in isolation. That wouldn't make any sense. It wouldn't be the full picture. Yeah, restrung guitar feels good, bro. How can you have the abortion discussion with someone pro-choice? Well, like, okay. I will give you the. It's going to go back to money. Like, the entire construction of like Planned Parenthood and the prevalence of abortion of like infanticide is entirely energized by money. You know what I mean? Like it simply doesn't exist in the same numbers in natural pressure, and because of the socialization of women and the artificial pressure of, like, you have to think when you had like the period of women's suffrage, so if you don't know this, women's suffrage doubles the labor market, and when your labor increases, your pay decreases. So like this is the reason that relative pay drop, because the labor market doubles when you artificially create like an equal opportunity for all women, and they don't have to compete in the job market, and that's like the whole thing, right? So it's not really about like helping women, because it used to be that a woman could stay at home and not work and like enjoy life, which is the only, like, why would you go to work? You would go to work to have a family, right? Like, and like perpetuate your generation. The entire purpose of like women in the job force is to fucking destabilize society. Like, Like that's it. That's all that it's for. It's just social. It's just another aspect of socialization. Abortion is socialization of like um, eugenics being introduced into a population where they're like self clipping their next generations for following money. You know, like when they put money and time in the labor market above their regeneration, and that's it's only possible when you get society all spun up like we are, in the modern era, where it's like, I mean, most people, like most people, I don't want to get into that. It's its in effect is to make people be fucking unable to like always be on the run, always be moving from one emergency to next, never being able to feel like they can get their feet on the ground. That's the entire purpose of socialization. It's just control. What's up? What's up, QKVCS? No, okay. Let's go a little bit less divergent on topics, okay? So how would you convince a woman? Abdullah, do you have like a problem where somebody's trying to abort your kid, or what? What's up with these questions? What's up with all these abortion questions? We're just trying to look. Chat is fine. We're just trying to stay. We want to try to stay like a little bit narrow on the topic, so we can go to other topics, but give me a segue so we're not going from like abortion to fucking like clones or what, like give me some kind of center here, like a gradual change. Canada is very pro-abortion. Abdullah, the entire world is pro-abortion at this point. I mean, it's not just Canada. You know how many fucking abortions happen in the United States? It's fucking absurd. Nobody even gives a shit. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Well, I mean, most people don't want babies. See, here's the thing about abortion, right? Like, you have to think of like the cities, like an urbanite city with a large population is pretty much like, I mean, they're entirely managed. They're entirely socially managed and entirely dependent, and they're almost operating as like a hive system, where it's like the person is expected to go through these sterile fields of employment and whatever their career is, and they have their entire life. It's like everything is like they don't own anything. Everything's just fucking temporary until they die, and then somebody else like pops into the shoebox and takes their place, and that's like the entire nature of like cities. You know what I mean? Like as they're constructed, and cities are constructed that way because it's the most efficient way when your system is money. Like if you didn't have money and you were constructing cities, they look entirely different. They look more like the old cities of Europe. Oh fuck. Okay, yeah, we can talk about that. That's socialization. So, Murphy wants to know: Can we talk more about media race baiting and constant pushing of racial tensions in America? Yeah. So, it's like the actual. So if you're talking about riots, right? Riots like if you're talking about like a Black Lives Matter demonstration, or like Baltimore or something like that, all that shit gets started by fucking NGOs. So you have a tax exempt organization is typically going to operate under the 501c3 title, because that has a very basic latitude where you can just throw in like nondescript legally binding function descriptions in the application of the IRS, and then they're not very picky about it because there's so many that that like every time they approve one, it gets added to like the definitional standard of like what they can reference. So it's like automatically, it's an expanding model all the time. And the NGOs basically the way that they act is they're like in the United States, because we have the Federal Reserve and because we have the income tax. In the tax code, you get like basically like an inversion of economics, which is the tax exempt, nonprofit sector. And the nonprofit sector is actually fucking huge. Like, it's trillions of dollars. It's like it's big. I think if I remember correctly, nonprofit sector is larger than for-profit sector because the top banks, like the retail finance banks, are considered nonprofit, so they don't have to pay taxes. So, like, most people think of nonprofits and shit as like charity, right? Like everybody says like it's charity, but it doesn't have anything to do. Like actual charity is prior to the tax code, like prior, like 1800s and like very early 1900s. That's charity, where it's just like people just giving money to do things. The IRS system makes it. I mean, it's just an inversion of regular economics, but the like you get a tax break through the Treasury Department, both for the donors and for whatever organization is. And then the organization, how it's set up, like why the NGOs are so rapidly like expanded and all over the fucking place and doing subversive shit, is because what's going on is that was the point of putting in the IRS code when it was originally written, and I'm sure you're familiar with like Apple going to court, and then some stupid ass article. This has been like years ago, but when Apple went to court, looking at like possible tax evasion, and their books were just like squeaky clean, and then all the people, like there were all these news stories about how the prosecutors and shit were like really impressed with their bookkeeping stuff. Like, wow, you're really fucking smart, Apple. And what's really going on is that they're taking their tax liability, like whatever their tax liability will be, they form an NGO, and it's like multiple steps removed. And so like every company has either an NGO or they have a preferred NGO that they use from another company, and then they'll like, depending on the need of the NGO of whatever their mission is, they will dump all of their tax liability into that because they're going to lose it anyway. So it's like you can either pay out the nose for your taxes, or you can fucking diversify it into something that you want to do anyway, right? And like then you don't even have to fucking pay taxes, right? Like if you give your money to an NGO that's a 501c3, then you're gonna get like fucking, I don't know, what is it for a 501c3, like I think it's over 30%. So you're gonna get 30% return on like a donation of your AGI, adjusted gross income, for a entity, which is huge, right? And then if they use it for like, where it gets really interesting is when you like, so like any tax exempt organization has a legit piece of paper that they got approved on that has like a direct tax exempt mission. And if your donation to a tax exempt organization fulfills what's on the paper, like directly, like if you're let's say that you're a nonprofit that gives away cars to like homeless people so they can have a car, right? And that's like your entire tax exempt purpose, which is possible under 501c3. Like that's totally within the brackets of what a 501c3 can do. So if you give them a car, they're going to reference Kelley Blue Book, and then they're just going to cut a treasury check to whoever donated. Like, for you get what I'm saying? So like the Kelley Blue Book rate of whatever it is, whether it's a new car or whatever, that is the comparable. Like that would be the terminology that they use. They say this is the comparable, and then it goes with your 8282 that you would do for a car, for donating a car, and then they're going to get the full fair market value of the vehicle. And so the the fucking NGOs are, this is like the whole game, is that they're connected to the companies, and people don't understand that. This is why in illegal immigration, like South American immigration, um, this is why they're all like bringing in South Americans, because these are all like hemorrhaged. Like the immigration NGOs are all hemorrhaged tax liability from large corporations in the United States. And if you wanted to know more about this, there's a book called Philanthropy and Cultural Imperialism, which is by an academic, and it's kind of dated because it's from like the 90s, I think, or maybe early 2000 period. But it gives like a perfect framework of like the extent of this and how, I mean, it's like, it's huge. Like we're talking, I mean, it's a bigger market than the for-profit sector in terms of revenue, like in terms of dollars that are exchanged. Yeah, that's a great. It's the author of that is Arnov, like Arnove, and he's a professor, and I think he's at like Indiana State University. Philanthropy and Cultural Imperialism. Now he's a Marxist, right? Like as all professors are pretty much these days. So you have to like, you gotta read between the lines, but it's very good. Like it's got a ton of information in there. When am I dropping the album? I don't know when I make it. When I stop making these streams and fucking work on the music. Yeah, Wounded Warrior. So like, you gotta understand that like these NGOs, even the like, not all of them. Now if you do like a 501c19, that is kind of veterans. Like Wounded Warrior is a 501c3, so they don't have to have fuck all to do with veterans. I mean, basically, I mean if they put in their 1024 paperwork to the IRS that like something specific about veterans, and they have to do it. Like they're legally bound to do whatever they say, and that's why 501c3s are always like vague as fuck. So they just have maximum latitude to do anything with their money that they want. Okay, yeah. Let's turn back to the protests. So we talking about John? Want to talk more about the protests? You're talking about? Are you talking about? You're talking about the like the call to action I put out? Is that what you're? I'm assuming that's what you're referencing, right? Why is that? Zapov? Okay, I'm bringing it in here, guys. Bringing it in. Everybody chill out. We are going to the topic of protests, right? And I asked which protest. I asked if you're talking about the call to actions that I put out. Is that what you're referencing, or are you referencing a different protest? All right. So the reason that we put out a call, we being Dugan, the royal we put out the we put out the call to action to gauge interest in doing a creative demonstration, and it's not a protest, because protest implies has a connotation of like we're going to be effective, and that's not what it's for. The entire purpose of the demonstration would be to cause a scene that would be, in a lawful way, that would be so high profile that it would anybody that saw it would understand that there is a like serious fucking like opposition to all this fucking vaccine shit in the United States. Like that the uh, synthesis that everybody's just like great with it, like they just can't wait to get vaccines. That they would understand that that's like fake, And the idea would be that once if people can see that, then they're if they have a strong mind, they can break through the narrative and then understand like, wow, so it's not really a protest like to like talk to the government to ask them something, because the government's not going to do, like they don't give a fuck, right? So that's hopeless. The point of the demonstration would be to do like a creative demonstration with like this is what I'm thinking. I think the first thing that would be really interesting would be you'd have to get everybody in one area. Well, I'll back up. So there's two ways that you could go about it. Number one, you could do a decentralized model, which would be way cheaper, where people are doing something with social media in their own locality. I don't know what that would be or look like. I haven't thought enough about it, because I just thought of like challenging what's going on earlier today. The other way that you could do it would be like the traditional role, where you gather everybody in some area that has something to do with what you're referencing in your demonstration. Like Boston Tea Party down at the fucking docks, and something like that. And then I'm thinking of like costumes, and in my head I'm seeing something like, I don't have it worked out. Like the vision of it isn't worked out to the degree of like how extreme to go with it, and how the specific costumes and shit to make them tie together so it's not just like chaos and confusion. But even chaos and confusion would be somewhat effective because it's disruptive. So like I'm thinking like costumes, and what would be really creative would be to get a bunch of like fedoras and Orthodox Jew costumes with like peyote and shit, like the curls, and then put them on people to intermix in there, so that then they're like, the police are really afraid to like fuck with them. You know what I mean? They can just kind of do whatever they want. That's my first idea. The other thing that I would like to do is to have anime girls in there, and that's like, now this is confusing, right? And I don't know exactly how I feel about this, but there's the situation is really serious of what needs to be challenged in the United States. Like, and it should be done, right? It doesn't have to be done, but it should be done. Like it's right to challenge it. And the way that the United States is lost, they only pay attention to their vices. And so like I don't want to make a demonstration where it turns into some kind of like, degenerate hedonist fest, but like I think that it would be effective to get a bunch of like girls that can dress in anime and are like voluptuous women, and put them like in key places that are high visibility, so that like people walking around see them, and so that any cameras that were there would see them. You know what I mean? And then like intermix them through there, and then relate it to the topic of, we don't want vaccines, and we don't want fucking military like running around giving people fucking vaccines. So that's the general idea, would be like costumes, and then do it like in a location that was disruptive, like where you're not gonna get shut down, but is creative, like where you're gonna see senators and shit like that. Yeah, multicam yarmulkes. Yeah, just have a huge box of yarmulkes for all the people that came with like no costumes and shit. They just get the yarmulkes. Everybody like fucking no, like you're just gonna be able to walk around and do whatever you want. And then we have, the way that it would be managed would be to have delegated, it'd basically be like military formation, like military command system, where you would have like a hierarchy that diminishes as it goes up. So you have like all your participants, so like the main tier, and then you would have like intermixed with them, we would make like uh, the people that, it's like a team. Like, no, it's not just like a sea of people. It just looks like that. What it really is like a 5-man team with a squad leader, or a team leader. And then the team leaders have like a squad leader, and the squad leaders have like a platoon leader, and the platoon leader, and then they're all set up so that if somebody like gets sick or gets injured or can't show up or whatever, then they can like rotate and switch positions. And then like coordinate it in that way so that you have a redundant organic demonstration body that is like really high profile. That's the general idea. Texas Proud asked me, Booger Eater, why are you proposing order following with this? It's not order following. It's not order following. It's like it's literally the ability to communicate up to have consolidation in the like focus of it. That's it. Like it's like we could even have phones or radios. The way that would work would be like, like if you wanted to assemble in like one specific spot, if the situation changes, then you can execute it immediately. But if you don't have the command system set up, then it's like if everybody doesn't know the like how information is going to be passed, then nobody will know what's going on, and it just turns. It'll look like every other protest, right? Which is just like a clusterfuck, and nobody knows what's going on. And if people don't have assignments related to the specific purpose, then they'll they won't be effective because people are naturally apprehensive to conflict, including like a police officer standing there, like even if they're not doing it, even if it's just like a barricade and the police are on one side and somebody else is on the other side, it causes like in the human psyche of a meek person, they're gonna it's gonna affect their behavior and their psychology. And so like the idea is that you want to have tasks, like things that are done, because it's not just people standing around, which is how a lot of protests go. It would be specifically made so that like people are doing things the entire time, like they're doing things that are effective. And then if they're not effective, then we're like, well, that worked on paper, that didn't work in real life, like fuck that, we're doing something else, and then move on to like the next thing and have all the ideas out there and be able to like launch them down, like, okay, we're in phase green, we're in phase blue, like whatever, and everybody as soon as they hear it fucking knows what's going on and they can react accordingly. And if they don't want to, like if they don't, if a person is like feels unsafe or like the shit just gets out of fucking control, you just fucking leave, just walk off, So it's not order following, it's information, like an information train. Did that answer your question? Yeah. Okay. All right. So I guess we're moving on. Texas Proud is moving us along here. So if you didn't know Texas Proud, could you give me the name of that, the actual burial building where Mordecai and Esther are in? No, Aaron, we're not talking about that. Fuck off. Okay. So we're moving on to topics. We are now going to talk about recent events because it's significant and it has to do with China. Through Iran. So in Iran, there is a very old tomb which has the remains of Esther, Queen Esther, and Mordecai, which is her like her what would you call that, like her keeper, like her guardian, and they're related, right? They're blood related. And so this is in Iran, and there have been reports of it being torched, but do we have anybody in here that's in Iran by chance? Queen Esther, how else would I say it? All right, Ramro says Iran is allegedly undergoing some sort of rebellion right now. Zavpal, do you understand what's going on here? Come on. Okay, the place is called the Tomb of Esther and Mordecai. Okay, so the tomb of Queen Esther and Mordecai got burned, allegedly. We don't have confirmation of it, but this is in the this is through an American diplomat and representative to Iran through their Twitter, which I guess is now like the executive and legislative branch like officialdom somehow. Like we somehow lost our, we lost our we lost our country. So now Twitter is like officialdom, right, for like putting out decrees and shit. So like, so anyway, so allegedly it got burned. We don't know if that actually happened. If we get somebody in Iran that can confirm this, then we would know for sure. But it's a very serious situation, and so it could be fake, right? Like if it's not actually burned, it could just be a rumor that's burned, that's put out, right? Do you guys know the story of Queen Esther? Okay. All right. Some people don't know. Okay. So Queen Esther. Queen Esther was in Persia, was selected as a replacement for a you would call him a governor of Xerxes, right? So Xerxes had a governor, and his wife was dissatisfying him somehow, and he selected Esther based off of beauty, and then Queen Esther, her brother, I believe, is Mordecai, and Mordecai is also the like her guardian, like keeps her from, like, watches her back. And so Amon, which is a lieutenant of the governor, she didn't come to dinner. That's she didn't come. Yeah. So anyway, so there was a Amon wanted to kill all the Jews, and he was unaware that Esther was Jew, right? And Esther had direct connection to the ear of who am I? Can you help me out here? Who is the governor? In the story? Zerk? It's not Zerk. Okay. No, Amon. Zelfov, give me a hand here. I can only remember so many names. I never met him. Was okay. So yeah, Amon is the governor. No, Amon is the lieutenant of the governor, right? Okay. Asarius is the king. Amon is the governor, is the subordinate of the king. And Amon wants to get all the Jews killed. And Esther, LARPs as a non-Jew, and then like comes up with a plan, and then like hangs Amon and all of Amon's sons, and like everybody, well, a bunch of people get hanged, right? And this is the story of Esther, which is it's a very deep story in Jewish history. Like, it's extremely significant. It's like reverberates almost similar to harmonics, like electromagnetic harmonics, in terms of like the sociosphere of Judaism. It recurs over and over and over again throughout history. Everything from like the Spanish Inquisitions all the way up into modernity. And so so the holiday that comes from Queen Esther is called Purim. And that would be a holiday that is celebrated in the thought of like this harmonic idea of like the Jews outsmarting their enemies, and then using their own, like wickedness to like kill them all, like with sabotage, right? Like that is the, oh, no worries, come on. That is the idea behind the story of Esther and Purim. For Purim, they wear costumes. We're actually, you know what? It's appropriate that we talk about Purim, because the thumbnail of this video is actually a costume from Purim. So in Purim, the Jews will dress up in a costume as like a disguise, right? It's like a deceptive disguise. And so like and this, this is all the time. This is like every year, So the thumbnail for this video is a picture of a guy wearing a American Airlines Flight 11 plane exploding hat, and that is from a Purim. That is from a Purim celebration. There's also some 9/11 Purim costumes, if you didn't know that. Now, that should fill in some history there. I don't know a whole lot about Amon, about he's Persian. This is also really significant. The story of Esther is really significant because Pompeo has referred to, as like gave a big reference to Donald Trump as being the modern Queen Esther, which, if you that's, you could take that a couple ways, but to me the most logical way is that Trump is preparing to serve Israel, like the nation state Israel, to betray the United States. Under the general recollection of the story of Esther. What's your plan of defense if the police raid your farm, Dugan? Give them some tomatoes. I don't know. I'm going to have a chat with them. We're going to have a live stream. F4 Phantom asked me, will the Zionists ever lose? The answer is yes, they will. They will lose. Yeah, the plain hat on the thumb of this. Okay. Abdullah, Zionists aren't wrong. Well, let's get back to that. So the plain hat in this thumbnail is a costume from Purim. Purim is a Jewish holiday to celebrate the clever, cunning sabotage of the Jews' enemies, to like kill them, like just wipe them out, right? That's what it's a reference to. And for the Purim costumes, Jews will wear costumes related to like historical events that evoke the story, like this harmonic story that happens through time of the Jews doing this. So like there are a lot of 9/11 costumes for Purim. And the thumbnail of this video is an American Airlines Flight 11 hat, with a plane like exploding through some guy's head. And that is the story of Esther. There's a person on here whose screen name is I'm Gay, and he asked me, so do I think he's a competent president? No. Do I think he has humanity's interests at heart? No. How will this... Because it's a heavy topic. If you want to get into Zionists, it's not an easy topic. Stream is getting choppy, okay. Let's see. Okay, how's that? Is that better? Lag. Okay, we got good reception now. What do you guys want to talk about? Do you want to talk about Zionism? Okay. We got some yeses here. It's enough to sway me. Okay. So the question that got us into Zionism was somebody asked, why will the Zionists lose? The Zionists are going to lose because they are like, you basically have to to analyze this, you have to take parallel timelines. So like if we're considering like the Jewish timeline of like prophecy, then the reason that if we're using that as the domain to consider this, right, as the reality to consider this, then the reason that they lose is because somebody's got to get driven out under the rod. Like somebody has to get driven out under the rod that is considered like the rebel Jew, and that would be the Zionists. And in prophecy, in Jewish prophecy, like when in Jewish prophecy, this is not. I can define Zionism later, but in Jewish prophecy, Mashiach ben Yosef comes before Mashiach ben David, and the reason that Mashiach ben Yosef would come would be because there would be a condition on earth that's not suitable for the way that Mashiach ben David interfaces with the world is, not prepared in this scenario. And so Mashiach ben Yosef comes originally, and Mashiach ben Yosef is from an exiled, he's not a Jew, right? Mashiach ben Yosef is not a Jew, he's an Ephraimite. So he's a lost tribe. So he's an Israelite, but not a Jew. And what that means is that at this time, like the Jews, because they're consolidated under Yehuda, they don't recognize anything but that. So if nobody knows who the tribes are, but if you were convinced that you were of a tribe, and then you went to the Jews, they're not going to accept it. You know what I mean? Like, they're not. It's their way or a highway. It's like it's rabbinicism or the highway. And so, which isn't correct in terms of Torah, because the way that Torah actually is written is it's matched to people's own sight. And so like every person has their own sight, like that quality is a reality that is not understood by humanity, but each person has their own sight. And this is the way that people mistake
and mistake their physicality, like what they see with their senses, they mistake it for actuality. And this has to do with the sight. And the reason that it's necessary is because as change occurs in humanity, like I'm going into like almost like a evolutionary analysis here, like the way that it's by people having their own sight and mistakenly believing that their sight is actuality, they actually cause the contrast, which is similar to like Hegelian dialect, or what they would call Hegelian dialect, on an individual level. So like that's like the way that you struggle on a day-to-day basis in your life. Um, because of that, the way that like the error in rabbinicism is that they have I don't want to call it, like they're not, like their interpretation of Torah isn't narrow, but it's not, I don't think it's entirely correct. So but it is like locked in a tradition. So the like the way that like the Mashiach ben Yosef, if he came, he would pretty much, like he would be completely at odds with the Jews. You see what I'm saying? And so it's like their own, like the key that they need for their redemption would be like they would hold it back from themselves, like a too close to touch type of thing, right? Like they don't accept it. And so and so the reason that the Zionism will fail is because Zionism is like the nation state version of rabbinicism. And uh, it's extremely narrow, and it doesn't it arguably doesn't follow like the provisions of exile, depending on who you talk to. And the Mashiach would have to come before uh, you know before Aliyah can occur, when all the Jews go back to Israel. So like Jews are prohibited from creating a government in Israel right now, but there is one. Uh, I mean, technically, right? So like you get, and that's why you get conflicts in Israel between Orthodox Jews and the Israeli state. Like if you've ever seen video of protests where there's like IDF and shit like dragging around Orthodox Jews, the reason is because Orthodox Jews in rabbinicism, like depending on the their interpretation of Torah, believe that Israel, they're in Israel because it's a spiritual presence, but not a like a nation state political presence, right? And so that's why like Westerners don't really understand this, and so it's like really confusing when they're watching like video of like a bunch of rabbis getting like basically beat up by the IDF, and they're like, what the fuck is even going on here? Well, this is what's going on. So they're present there because they can be, because there's a Jewish nation state, so they can go there, but they're not allowed to like have a military. They're not allowed to like it was like a huge deal when they did IDF conscription for the Jews, for like the Orthodox Jews, like because they're not allowed to do it, right? So the reason that Zionism will fail is that even the Jews, if like to achieve redemption, it's necessary, essentially. If you talk to Jews, I don't think that they'd have that opinion, but it's pretty, that's my opinion. I'll put it that way. The other reason that it will fail is because the nation state model that's being used is like totally, it's not possible to maintain it. Like it's not a perpetual system. It's like a self-eating system, and so it's just it's destined for failure. It can't be set up in a hierarchy, although they think that they can, but it can't be. They just don't know. Okay, did that answer the question? Or what? We're gonna turn on some AC in here. It's getting warm. Are we good on that? Okay. So essentially, somebody asked me why Zionism would fail, and a broad, like a vague answer would be, or like a generalized answer would be that it fails not only on the Jew timeline, it fails on the Gentile timeline. So like regardless of your perspective, it has to fail. I don't like Gary Bezmenov. I don't think he's honest. Okay, so we're going to. Yeah, it has been winning. It sure has. All right, so we are going to close this out. I'm gonna go jump onto Discord. All right, we're gonna try it out. All right, have a good night.